Hi, welcome and namaste to the Yoga Out of the Box podcast. My name is Marvin. I'm a yoga teacher, practitioner. Yeah, for the last few years, I'm traveling around trying to deepen my own sense of what yoga really means for me. And I try to share this on the podcast. I try to share this while teaching. Yeah, from time to time, some new stuff comes on my way. And today I want to talk with you guys about a topic which is like quite important, I think. Actually, if we have a look at modern types of yoga we have, on the teachers out there teaching, and even in the age of where we are living in, because of this kind of inconsistency in everything. Okay. We want to talk about like yoga lineage, about what it really means, what the necessity of it is. How do I see it nowadays? Some of you guys know that I have like a strong Ashtanga background for the last few years, and so it's something which comes up more and more often, I think, and even how you have to interpret this for yourself as like a yoga teacher. I mean, like, this can be really, really important and also destructive for yourself if you always try to compare yourself with someone different than you, and you maybe reevaluate teachers differently. And I think this comes pretty straight to the point of, for what is lineage? What does it really mean? First, I think we have to step back a bit and to again clear our typical Western thinking from, there's the Yoga Sutras, then this kind of text, this kind of philosophy, this kind of teacher, and it's like a straight line coming towards us. It's quite different. Obviously, in the Yoga Sutras, really early on, first describing a kind of process of yoga. Then they have like different other texts, same time, a bit earlier, a bit later, with different kind of spiritual guidelines, with different kinds of like references to that. And I'm just coming out of like a 2 weeks immersion of like philosophy with Thailandrum. So credits definitely to one of my great teachers here. Think that we have to clarify, first of all, that yoga is not something straight, something easy, and something really linear, even if the word lineage makes us think this way. Yoga always had like different kind of roots, different kinds of like evolutionary like roots it took later on, and sometimes they come back together. And a really interesting thing I didn't know before, and I was explaining, is actually in Hindu philosophy or Eastern philosophy, they often like try to honor the previous kind of works, the previous kind of like achievements of other people by referring to them in their new stories. So if we have, for example, new texts in like the Upanishads, in like different tantric texts, in different Hatha yoga texts, they often refer to the same thing but with a different kind of meaning or their own new interpretation. And I think this is really important to keep in mind, because really often I see people like fighting, but you know what I mean. There's like this, I've trained like with this teacher, I'm from this source, I'm practicing this, and I'm coming from this direct teacher. And in the end, I think it's really important for us to remember that there always have been like a lot of different teachers, that there always have been like a lot of different kind of evolutions out of yoga and out of the tradition, and that we have to, when we talk about tradition, to think about that it never was like a thing before. If people would have let it be the same exact thing it would have been, it would have never come towards us. And obviously, this has pros and it has cons. Actually, even when you look in modern yoga society, and when you open your phone and see these people sweating and doing crazy asanas, which are more like in Bali, smiling into the camera while flirting at the same time, which is like, where's the sense of yoga here? Actually, I don't know. But I think it's important to see that there always have been like different lineages. There always have been like different traditions, and tradition always had changed. Back then it was more the Shala of Patabi Joyce, then it was the Shala of like Sharat. Now, I think even after Sharat's passing, it split more up. I've been in Mysore last year, for a few months, and I can say that nowadays even like a lot of new teachers emerged out of this gap, and actually a lot of people practicing and training in SYC, for example, went also to a different place. Vijay Kumar, RJ Kumar, Vinay, So there are different kind of like teachers around in Mysore, and I think what was before like really, really important to keep this kind of, oh, I have to practice with the source. I have to practice as close as possible. And I talk here about myself as well. When I started yoga or my journey and I really wanted to go deeper into, I was researching, okay, how can I do like get as close to the source as possible? For me, back then it was Rolf. It was interestingly, like back then already for me, like an eye-opening, because he had like a completely different view on things. Like, no, there's so many teachers out there. David Jones was one of his great gurus, but he had a great guru before that. And I find it really interesting to see that we maybe sometimes stress out about this, even if you're maybe a yoga teacher and you're thinking about teaching and you want to teach. It's like, wow, how can I do? I mean, there are 10,000 teacher trainings out there, but they are not really legitimate. And I think we all agree that this is not giving you like the authority to really teach. At the same time, it's going to this special place because of the name. I don't know if this brings you closer to the source. I think what Lineage should do, and here we come to the point which is like, I think the most essential we all should take out of Lineage, is that we want to keep the tradition as clear as possible and at the same time as experimental as possible. Because I think that as soon as something becomes a dogma, we got into this yoga should do. You know, it's more about like caring to keep something dead alive. We try to keep a tradition alive. We try to keep a system running alive where maybe the founder is not there anymore. This is Ashtanga Yoga, for example. It's not dependent on one person. It's a system, it's a methodology. It's like a whole process which was cultivated over years, over decades, over maybe centuries by different people, different practitioners to make you have an experience with yourself. And I think the most essential thing is to have clear baseline of what really the core essential kind of teaching is, which doesn't mean you can't adapt that and transfer it to something which is maybe experimental, then name it. It's experimental, like all the old traditional philosophical and mythological texts did, and like give a reference for, okay, I see it was essential for me to achieve this, and I do know something new. At the same time, we should keep it like really clear that what we are doing is like a transcend something new, and it's like a kind of own experiment. People are not getting confused. I think there will always be people who which want to be like as close as possible to the real tradition, and that's absolutely fine. Nothing bad with that. And I hope there will be, because I think this also a lot of people like a really clear baseline on. For example, for me, it was the same here with my teacher Kaka in Florianopolis. She gives me a really, really clear traditional baseline on Ashtanga on which I can place my own experience and my own practice, my own teaching on. While I think giving also your students the space to explore out of it is really essential. And all my teachers, all the teachers which really changed my life did this for me. I want to give this to my students as well. I would never try to the experience back to something I think yoga is. We all have different experiences of yoga, and everybody has to make his own. That's the beauty about it. Anyways, one more point, which is for me like really important to mention here, is that I think nowadays we should think Lineage newly. We should not refer specifically to one bloodline or specific teacher because of this or that, or like to one tradition. We should honor the teachers we have had the blessing to teach, like to practice with, learn from, and to experience yoga in a sense which gave us this ability in the first place to experience ourselves, and then to go further for yoga and to teach it. So if you're a yoga teacher, I think you should care less if you have the perfect lineage or if it's like the greatest teacher and the biggest names. That doesn't have to be. I was like looking for that, and I can tell you most of the time the teacher you find like in your place, wherever that is, who has like a really small shala but is doing the work every day for students and builds like a consistent practice with them, can change your life so much more than like a fancy workshop or really expensive retreat experience. You don't have to go to Purple Valley. You don't have to go to any specific place. Just practice. Just go to like the place in your hometown. Always the vibe has to be good, and you have to have this feeling with the teacher. Most of the time, you learn so much more from somebody who's like directly, there for you every day, and you can learn like from fancy names on Instagram. Doesn't matter how good the Lineage is. And the same, I think you should even one step back, and then I'm totally done with this point. You should focus on your own practice. You should focus on, the most important Lineage I have is myself, the alignment with myself. This was actually what Rolf told me. The first thing he ever said to me was when I saw him, I'm not your teacher. I'm not your guru. You're your own teacher. Your body knows, already knows. I'm just a practitioner on my way. Maybe a bit older, a bit more steps ahead of you on the way. And I find this so inspirational. It always humbles me and gives me back this kind of space. This is the only thing. We can use all these tools, all these methodologies, all these mystical tools, maybe of yoga, spiritual yoga, the asanas of yoga. But it's tools, it's a methodology. None of us, and I said this before, none of us, I think, want really to reach in this lifetime like the complete entanglement of life. No, maybe you want, but then you should really think about if you not go to like psychotherapy as well, because it's like, in my worldview at this point, worth to live in. And I don't feel like I'm actually already in my last incarnation. I'm not already like on the last step of I'm far away from that, I guess. And so I don't want to all my attachments. I see it more like Alan Watts. Like, you have to drag it up, to let it down. And life is just like riding a bicycle. It's a balance trick. And the same, like with yoga. So use your tools. Don't worry too much about Lineage. Acknowledge it, for sure. The right interpretation for you, and find teachers which are like suitable. Gives you the space even to explore. But don't think that Lineage just means you have to follow one name or one bloodline or one specific style or one teacher. There are some yoga traditions out there where still the next guru is out. Doesn't mean this has to be your guru, just that you can follow this tradition. Just maybe use what's useful for you. Think about it, don't be dogmatic, and I hope there was something in there for you. I'm sorry if this is slightly controversial. This is just my honest opinion I try to share here with you. I would be super interested about your opinions about this, about your kind of recognition in Lineage. So please leave a comment below in the Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Write me a DM on Instagram. Like always, all the links are below. Check out the Instagram. Check out our Wake Up Yoga Academy. I would be honored to spend some time with you on the mat. And I hope you have a great time. Thank you so much for listening. Tune in next week.